Malcolm Conn does join us, one of News Limited's number one, well, in fact, he is the number one cricket writer for News Limited, and he joins us on the line. Welcome to you, Malcolm.
Thanks, Jared.
I bet you didn't think you'd be talking about David Warner again in these sorts of circumstances so quickly.
No, I didn't think that 3 weeks after our Twitter war that he'd be back in the news for even more unfortunate reasons.
So, was it our guy's fault, or was he an innocent victim in this, and this is just an unfortunate incident that he happened to get drawn into? Which is the correct way to report it tomorrow?
Well, I think if you're out late and you're drinking, then you leave yourself in a vulnerable position, and that's as far as you have to go. I don't know the exact details. I know there was allegedly a physical altercation between Joe Root and David Warner, but a very well-paid professional Australian sportsman shouldn't put himself in that position in the first place. So I have no sympathy for him. I thought our Twitter war was a bit of a silly aside, and I was disappointed he was fined, but I can understand Cricket Australia finding him because of the language he used. But this is front and centre. You're representing your country. You're supposed to be getting yourself in your best shape to get some form back, because his form's been terrible and the team's form's been very ordinary, and he puts himself in a position like this. So hopefully lesson learnt, but I won't be convinced, unfortunately.
Malcolm, what do you think is the appropriate penalty? Because he's out for tonight's match. That's a given. They're going to have a hearing. They've got form, sending the three blokes home from India. Where does this finish? Well, if it was down to me, I agree with Wayne. I think that Cricket Australia's got to get tough. If we put our mind back to 2005, where Andrew Simons fell off a wheel, he'd been at Cardiff, and he'd been out all night, and he got suspended for a couple of matches. But I know there are senior Australian cricket officials who regret that they didn't send him home, that he didn't learn his lesson. And I think that David Warner's at a stage of his career now where he thinks he's bulletproof. He's clearly not. And I think that some hard lessons need to be learnt. However, I'm not convinced that will happen. I've checked the newspapers over in England. They're covering the story, but it's very much as if it's a one-sided issue at the present time. No mention so far that Joe Root has been called to account for any element he has played in this. So I take it it's essentially the fact that our bloke threw the punch that landed him in the trouble.
Look, I don't know that. I don't know who did what in the altercation, but I just think that whatever happened in the altercation is sort of extra facts on top of what we already know. I think the very fact that he put himself in a position to be in an altercation late at night on the third is enough to take action.
But I guess my point is Joe Root was in exactly the same position, but nothing's been spoken about over in England about him.
Well, I guess that's up to England. We can only hope that if that's their culture, it filters through before the Ashes starts. Any
injuries from the altercation at all?
I don't know. Nothing serious as I understand it. Maybe a dented pride and a bit of remorse, but I don't think the remorse lasts very long.
Who will make the call on David Warner?
Well, it's a rather convoluted process, unfortunately. There's they call in a code of conduct commissioner to actually hear the charge, and so there'll be a phone hookup in the next couple of days, certainly before the end of the week, which will go into all the facts, and then the commissioner will independently decide the penalty. It is with that in mind that I think that this will be considered in isolation, or probably just with the fact that 3 weeks ago he was fined almost $6,000 for his Twitter war, and not the wider issue that he doesn't toe the line as he should from time to time, that he's had to be hauled over the coals in private by team management from time to time, and that him and alcohol don't mix. So the Code of Commissioner probably won't take all that into account.
Malcolm, last night we opened up the program and basically took a straw poll on which Australian team do you want to see have the most success, whether or not you wanted the Socceroos to get to the World Cup, or would you prefer, of the two, Australia to win the Ashes. David Warner's my favourite player in the Australian cricket team right now, and with him falling foul of the authorities, it just adds to, I guess, the credibility that soccer has over cricket at the present time, and it's certainly playing into the hands of the round ball game, who I think are rapidly eclipsing Australia and the cricket team as the number one national team.
Well, Drew, there's no question it's disappointing, and that goes to the heart of the point I made originally about the fact that you've got wider responsibilities. That it is a game that's in intense competition, and for 20 years has been losing an intense competition with AFL in particular to get not only the best young talent, but also the hearts and minds of all those who want to go and watch it as well and enjoy watching it and be part of it. So cricket has to be pristine to compete, and unfortunately with David Warner behaving the way he is, it's not.
Good to see you at an AFL game there last week, Malcolm, and know how passionate you are. Great to have you on the program, and we look forward to talking to you soon.
Thanks, Wayne.
Malcolm Conn.